Okay, I'm going to start this morning by welcoming everyone. Sawadee Kap, welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone online who's joining us as well. Today is an excellent day to come to the temple and learn the teachings of the Buddha, because the topic that we're going to be discussing after our meditation is called the Four Noble Truths, Establishing Right View. This is the very first teaching of the Buddha, and if you are interested in understanding his teachings and getting on to the path to enlightenment, you would be very well served to start with this particular teaching, because this is the very first teaching of the Buddha. You wouldn't be able to understand anything that the Buddha taught if you didn't understand the teaching that I'm going to be teaching you today. So welcome to all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone online. If you're joining us for the first time or you've been joining regularly, we start our classes with a meditation to be able to help you guys train your mind. But there's much more than just meditation that you would need in order to move your mind to this enlightened mental state where the mind's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, which is the enlightened mind, where the mind can perform more optimally. Yes, there's meditation that's needed, but there's a whole lot more as well. So that's why we share the teachings after meditation. So if you'd like to join for meditation, we're going to do breathing mindfulness meditation, and we're going to be starting with some chanting. And if you'd like to see these chants or maybe even join along, over there on the table, there's some chanting sheets. You're welcome to help yourself to get one of those at any point. You'll see the chants on there. You'll see the Pali chants as well as the English translations. The chanting that we do is to ease the mind into meditation and actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself. It's not a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. It's nothing mystical or magical. Chanting during the lifetime of the Buddha was used in order to commit the teachings to memory, because everything that he taught was oral. Nothing was written down during his lifetime because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world. So they would chant his teachings every 2 weeks. They would recite them orally. And this is how chanting came about. So that can help you to see that there's nothing mystical or magical about chanting or anything like that. It's not a ritual or a prayer or worship. If you read the English translations, you're going to see a lot of respect and gratitude and appreciation for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha actually even created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death. Because a Buddha doesn't walk around and say, here, chant these things to me and show me all this respect and admiration, because a Buddha would have eliminated his ego and his arrogance. He wouldn't put himself above others. So these chants were most likely created by his students, either during his life or after his death. Because if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger and the sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings to the peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state, and this teacher didn't want anything from you and didn't expect anything from you, you'd probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for that person too. So I think that his students probably created these chants, and I use them because it helps to get more benefit out of the meditation. If you're chanting on the way into meditation, it cultivates some awareness of mind and awareness of breath, kind of exercising the mind a little bit, and it helps you to get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So we're going to do that on the way into meditation. And then once we get into the meditation, you're going to hear me providing you some guidance during the meditation, just to kind of help you get started in understanding how to meditate, kind of providing you some instructions of how to actually meditate. But then there's going to be a long period of time where it's just quiet. We're just all meditating together. Everyone here and everyone who's joining us online will just be meditating at the same time. I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a dog barking or a bird chirping, or you might hear a car going by, but you can't be in an environment where there's permanent silence. So if your mind craves or has the expectation of permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you're going to be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So you can train your mind to understand that all these things are impermanent, that sound going by is impermanent, but also the quietness of the room is also impermanent too. There's going to eventually be some kind of sound that comes into the room. So if you hear any of those sounds you hear during the meditation, you can just bring your mind back to the breath and train your mind to not crave this permanence. Then after we're doing that meditation where there's that long period, we're just meditating together, we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And there again, you guys are welcome to join in to the chanting if you like. In terms of your body positioning for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught for meditation. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking. And the reason why is because you would need these at different times because your body can't permanently be in the same position all the time. You're going to need different positions at different times. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position. So I'll give you guys some guidance on the seated position to kind of help you guys get even more comfortable. There isn't just one way to sit. You can sit on the floor, you can sit in a chair. Maybe if you're at home, you're on a sofa or on a bench or a wheelchair or something like this. You can really sit however you're comfortable. So what I'm going to share with you is just some guidance to maybe help you find what's comfortable for you, because there isn't just one fixed way that everybody needs to sit during their meditation. So if you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This kind of helps to soften your seat a bit. And then you'd like to just lightly cross your legs. If your legs were real tight, this could impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. So you'd like your legs to just be lightly crossed. Some people like to put their legs off the mat, and this gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, and allows the circulation to flow. So you might try that if you like, having your legs off the mat. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here as well. You could put your palms on your thighs or your knees. You could put your palms up. Some people like to put their palms just resting comfortably in their lap. So whatever's comfortable for you, you could use it, because it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way. And the same thing for anyone who's sitting in a chair, on a bench, or in a wheelchair, or anything like this. There's not just one way to sit. You could sit with your legs flat on the floor, or your feet flat on the floor, your ankles crossed, or you could see me, I'm sitting in a chair with my legs crossed. So there's many different options here. And you could even sit with your hands and arms wherever you like if you're sitting in any kind of chair or bench or wheelchair or something like this. It's helpful if your upper body is erect with your sternum up and your shoulders back. It keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities. So you would like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. So by having your sternum up and your shoulders back, it'll keep the mind attentive and alert. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle. With the sternum up and the shoulders back, not only does it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it also helps you to breathe more easily through the nose. As you inhale and exhale, it allows you to expand your lungs nicely. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting, which you guys are welcome to join in on, and then I'll come back in with some guidance to help you during meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanang Apiwateyami Sawakato Mahakawata Tammo Namang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso คะวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตูอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุทธังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะ อิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามานุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. For all you guys in the back, we have plenty of room up here in the front. If you guys would like to come out of the hallway, you're more than welcome to come up here. We've got lots of space. Up to you, wherever you feel comfortable. Yeah, we've got plenty of space up here if you'd like to come into the classroom. I would like to just welcome all of you guys again. Some of you guys have come since we started meditating. Welcome to everyone here. Welcome to everyone who's online as well. Nice to see all of you guys this morning. For those of you guys that it's maybe your first time here at the temple, I'd like to just give you a little bit of guidance and some pointers that will kind of help you to feel even more comfortable here at the temple if this is your first time here. Up here in our temporary classroom, we actually have 2 bathrooms that you guys are welcome to use at any time. We've got this first door here is a bathroom, and the very last door all the way in the back by the stairs, that's a bathroom as well. You guys are more than welcome to use these restrooms at any time. We even have restrooms outside the classroom. If you go out to the parking lot, you'll see signs that'll take you around to the main temple bathrooms. There's main bathrooms over there that you guys are welcome to use those as well at any time. Just feel free to make yourself comfortable. We even have snacks and refreshments over here that are provided by our students. You're welcome to help yourself to anything over there on the table and just make yourself comfortable, make yourself at home. So as I was mentioning, today's an excellent day to join to learn the teachings of the Buddha, because we're going to be discussing his very first teachings that really help you get onto the path to enlightenment. Without understanding these teachings that I'm going to share with you today, you wouldn't actually be able to understand anything that the Buddha actually taught. So this is like the very beginning of what somebody would need to learn and understand to be able to get onto the path to enlightenment. If you were going to take a journey like on a hike, if you were going into the forest and you were going to take a hike on a hiking trail, there's usually a marker at the front of the trail, and it kind of says, walk this way, go down this hill, cross this stream, walk over this place, and then you essentially are circling back maybe to the parking lot or something like that, and that's maybe the hiking trail, and you kind of get an idea of what it's like on this hiking trail. And this is essentially what this particular teaching is that I'm going to share with you. It's called the Four Noble Truths. It's helping you to establish right view. This is like the trail marker of the path to enlightenment. It's helping you to be able to understand the problem that the Buddha discovered in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. In 4 simple statements, you're going to be able to understand what is causing your anger, in your sadness, your frustration, your irritation, your annoyance, your frustration and your guilt and shame and fear and your stress, anxiety, the loneliness and boredom, the shyness, resentment, the jealousy, all these discontent feelings and others, you're going to be able to understand today what's actually causing them. Because the path to enlightenment is to actually eliminate these from the mind, where you no longer experience sadness, you no longer experience frustration and guilt and shame and stress and anxiety. This is what it means to get to enlightenment, is that you can eliminate the causes and conditions that are producing these discontent feelings. But if you didn't understand what was causing these feelings, you wouldn't actually be able to eliminate them. So that's why the Buddha starts his students off with understanding the Four Noble Truths. So you can understand the problem in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. So whenever you're learning the teachings of the Buddha, it's important that you don't believe any of his teachings. So anything that I share today, don't believe anything that I say. Don't believe anything that you see I write in books. There is no belief on the path to enlightenment, because what belief is just something that you've either convinced yourself to believe or somebody else convinced you to believe it. You don't know what's true or false. You don't know whether it's actually true. So what you would like to do is be able to get to wisdom, where you know the truth. And the way you get to wisdom is that you learn something, you investigate it, and you examine it. You then reflect on it to independently verify through your own direct experience whether this is true or false. And then you practice it by integrating it into your life. And when you integrate it into your life and you're practicing, then you can see the truth through having cultivated wisdom, where the same thing has occurred in other parts of our life where you might have just been believing things and you were shaken up by those beliefs. If you grew up with the idea of Santa Claus or something like this, maybe you believed in Santa Claus for a really long time, but perhaps when you found out that Santa Claus didn't exist, you might have been really shaken up by that. I know I was. At eight years old, my sister came to me and said, "Hey, Mom and Dad were eating the cookies and milk last night. It's not Santa Claus that's been bringing us those presents. It's Mom and Dad," right? And I was like, whoa, I was really shaken up by that. So if you have a belief, you don't know whether it's true or false. You're just believing in this thing. And it's really easy for you to be shaken up when you realize that your beliefs aren't true. But when you learn something and examine it and investigate it, you reflect on it to verify whether it's true or false, and you're practicing it, you'll be able to see the truth and you'll be able to cultivate wisdom. And now with that wisdom, you'll be able to make wiser decisions that produces more wholesome results in your life. Because when you lack wisdom, you're going to make unwise decisions that are going to lead to unwholesome results. So when we were all growing up, we lacked the wisdom of the natural law of gravity, and we made unwise decisions. We fell down, we broke our knees maybe, or opened our skin and maybe busted our elbows, and we broke our toys, and we broke glasses and vases and things like this because we didn't understand this natural law of gravity. So we made unwise decisions without even realizing it. We made these unwise decisions and it produced unwholesome results. Slowly but surely, we cultivated wisdom of this natural law. And as we cultivated wisdom of this natural law, we started making wiser and wiser decisions. And now we're at the point where we've fully awoke. We have full wisdom of the natural law of gravity. And now we make wiser choices that lead to more wholesome results. We chose to tie our shoes a bit tighter. We chose to look at the surface of the sidewalk where we're walking. We stopped being so giddy and bouncing around like little kids all the time so that we didn't keep falling down over and over and over again. We started making wiser choices. And we can see the truth for ourselves that this natural law of gravity is real. We can see it. We're not believing it. We can see it for ourselves. We've independently verified it. So now we're at the point where we can climb ladders. We can ride bicycles and motorbikes. We can get on airplanes and travel all over the world because we have wisdom of this natural law of gravity. And this is what we needed to be able to do in order to make wiser decisions in the world about how we navigate the world. So this is what you're doing with the path to enlightenment in the teachings of the Buddha, is you're looking to cultivate wisdom. The Buddha didn't give you rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship. He didn't teach a bunch of rules or commandments. He wasn't guilting or shaming you into doing anything. He didn't teach you a bunch of beliefs or anything like that. Instead, he's not explaining to you the way the world should be. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And when you understand the way the world is and you cultivate that wisdom, then you can awaken to this wisdom and navigate the world more peacefully, just like you did with the natural law of gravity. Because these natural laws are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. Just like when we were a child, we were affected by the natural law of gravity, and we still are. But the difference is that we have wisdom about this natural law, and now we can function with ease because we understand this natural law. Well, there's these other natural laws that are at play all the time, that are affecting you whether you're aware of it or not. When you're angry and you're sad and you're frustrated or stressed or having anxiety, this is just because there's a lack of wisdom in the mind, and the mind hasn't been trained to understand these natural laws. So you're experiencing the difficulties and the struggles of living in a world that you don't understand. If you're experiencing stress and anxiety and frustration and agitation, there's certain aspects of the world that you don't understand yet. And when you're coming to a place like this, you can learn teachings, you can examine them and investigate them, you can reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false, and then you can practice what we're teaching, integrating it into your life, training your mind, and slowly but surely, over a consistent period of time, you'll see your discontent feelings gradually diminishing. And this is how you'll know that you're awakening more and more to the truth, because you know in situations where you were once angry or sad or frustrated, but when you're experiencing those same situations and you don't experience the anger and the frustration and these other discontent feelings, you'll know that your mind is awakening, because now you're starting to experience more peace and more joy in all situations. So in the enlightened mind, this individual not only has eliminated all those discontent feelings like the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, and others, but the mind is performing optimally. You'll notice that there's focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. You'll notice that your personal, professional relationships are really blossoming because you're not bitter and harsh and hostile anymore in your relationships. So your personal, professional relationships are at ease. You'll notice that you're not even in a bad mood anymore because the causes and conditions that are producing that have been uprooted and eliminated from the mind. And this all starts with the teaching that I'm going to share with you today. So it's important to not believe what I'm sharing with you, but instead, what the Buddha encourages you to do is to listen with eager ears, where you're actively listening to what the teachings are and you're reflecting on those teachings to independently verify them. And I'm going to show you how to do that as we get going here in our discussion, starting with the three universal truths. This is a building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. You wouldn't be able to understand the problem, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward, these four simple statements, to have this breakthrough to understanding what's causing your feelings until you understand the three universal truths. So I'm going to show you how to learn something, how to reflect on it to verify it, and how to practice it, starting with the three universal truths. And then after we talk about these, I'll explain to you the Four Noble Truths. We call them truths because the Buddha knows that they're true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true. But in order for you to get the benefit, you're going to need to know they're true. And that's why you're not interested in believing anything that's being shared. So this first one, the universal truth of impermanence. What this is sharing with you is helping you understand how the world is. And what the Buddha is teaching you is that there's something called conditioned objects. Conditioned objects, they arise, they change, and they fade away. Things are constantly changing. And when you look around the world around you, everything is impermanent around you. Anything you can see, anything you hear, anything you smell, any flavors that come in contact with the tongue, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through your mind, these things are all impermanent. They're called a conditioned object. They arise, they change, and they fade away. This is a building block that's going to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. You need to be able to see through your own independent verification that everything in the world around you is constantly changing, that there isn't this permanent fixed state. Everything that you see, all these material objects and everything that you hear, smell, taste, that comes in touch with the body, and anything that goes through your mind is all impermanent, meaning that it is not permanent. It's constantly changing. Enlightenment itself is an unconditioned object. Once you attain enlightenment, it's a permanent mental state that you attain, and that you'll experience that for the rest of your life. And the natural laws of existence, the natural laws that the Buddha taught, this is permanent as well. This is why the teachings of the Buddha that he taught 2,500 years ago are just as applicable today as they were 2,500 years ago, because he's explaining these natural laws, and these natural laws haven't changed. So when you're learning his teachings, they're timeless because he's explaining to you the natural laws. So everything else that you either see, hear, smell, taste, comes in contact with the body, or thoughts or ideas that go through your mind, these things are all impermanent and constantly changing. So this is a little bit of the learning on the universal truth of impermanence. But now you don't believe that. This is what I've shared with you, that the world around you is constantly changing and impermanent. So now you start reflecting on this to verify whether it's true or false. Because if this is really truth, you would be able to independently verify it. So you look around the world and try to determine whether things are permanent or impermanent. And I suggest you start with things that you're very familiar with, like this human body. You're very familiar with this human body. You can ask yourself, is this body permanent, meaning that it's always the same and it's never changed? Or is this human body impermanent? So ask yourself, is it permanent or impermanent? What would you say? Impermanent. I'm hearing impermanent, right? So this body is impermanent. It's constantly changing, right? From the moment of conception, when the egg and sperm came together, the body's constantly changing. We get moles and pimples. Our hair grows, we cut it, it grows some more. Maybe we get gray hair. Maybe we start losing our hair. Maybe we get a little extra fat here or there. Maybe a lot of extra fat here and there, right? We get all these changes that are happening to the body. We get taller and shorter. Our skin complexion changes. All this is change. It's impermanent. Okay. What about your relationships? Would you say your relationships are permanent or impermanent? If your relationships are permanent, you've had exactly the same people in your life and will have exactly the same people in your life your entire life. If your relationships are impermanent, you've had people coming and going in and out of your life your entire life. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, right? Okay. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? What's that? Totally impermanent, right? It's going up and down and up and down. Sometimes people's goes up, up, up. Some of us go down, 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 right? Our bank account is impermanent. It's constantly changing. What would you say about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? Poon says impermanent. What would you guys say? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing. Sometimes it's sunny, sometimes it's raining, some places it snows and sleets and hails. This is all impermanence, constant change with the environment. You can look around the temple. You can see things here are constantly changing. You can see marks and scratches. You can see the wood planks on the floor, different color, different shape, different texture. You can see all of us wearing different clothes, different hairstyle. You can see there was a certain number of people we started with, and now that's grown and there's more people that are here. And maybe by the time we leave, maybe it'll shrink down. Who knows? This group will change. This class is impermanent. We're not going to be here permanently. So things are constantly changing. So you can take this and look around the world in order to try to determine whether this is true or false, because you're not interested in believing it. You need to be able to see and deeply soak into the mind that what you're experiencing is impermanence. Everything around you is impermanent. So when you're walking down the street and you look down and you see a crack in the sidewalk, this is impermanence. Here in Thailand, the sidewalks even go up and down sometimes, right? This is impermanence. Some streets have sidewalks, some streets don't, right? This is all impermanent. So you need to go around the world and see for yourself, because you can independently verify that this is true, that everything around you is impermanent. The second universal truth, the Buddha is explaining the unenlightened mind. And this is called the universal truth of discontentedness. Some people refer to this as suffering. And I'm going to explain to you what this universal truth is. And then I'm going to circle back around and explain to you why I don't use the word suffering. So here, this universal truth in the original Pali language is referred to as dukkha. This word dukkha translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. The Buddha is explaining what the unenlightened mind experiences, which are conditioned feelings. Based on some condition, the mind is going to experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant feelings. The pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, exhilaration, euphoria, thrill, elation. These are all very pleasant to experience. Then there's painful feelings. Painful feelings are things like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are all very painful to experience, and they're based on some condition. then there's neither painful nor pleasant. And for me, I've put in here boredom and loneliness, but some people say that's really painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you'd like. But shyness is a really good example of neither painful nor pleasant. It's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or you might think about a time where you've been on public transportation and somebody that you don't know comes and sits next to you and your body is touching their body. You might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, your mind's kind of uncomfortable in this situation. That's what this third feeling is. So what the Buddha is explaining here is that the unenlightened mind is going to experience conditioned feelings. Based on some condition, you will experience these feelings. So if your bank account balance is up here, maybe you're so happy and excited, yay, right? But then when your bank account balance goes here, maybe you're sad or frustrated. This is a conditional feeling. The mind is basing its inner feelings on some condition. The condition is my bank account's up here, you'll be happy. Your bank account's here, you'll be sad. It's a conditioned feeling. It's based on some condition. For example, if you wake up in the morning and you see it's sunny outside, you might be so happy and so excited. That's based on a condition. But now the sun is impermanent. So when you go take a shower and you come out and you see that it's raining, you might be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So if you form your inner feeling of happiness based on some condition, because that condition is impermanent, your feeling is impermanent too. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness yet, because the mind is basing its inner feeling on some condition. An enlightened being is beyond all of this. They don't experience conditioned feelings any longer. An enlightened being will see that it's sunny outside, but they were already happy before they saw it was sunny outside. They're inwardly happy. It's unconditional happiness, unconditioned joy. And then when they go take a shower and they come out and they see it's raining, it's like, all right, well, it's raining. I guess I'm not going for that hike today. Maybe I'll stay home and read a book. Maybe I'll go to the mall, watch a movie. Maybe I'll invite my friends over for dinner. We'll maybe cook some food. The mind can stay happy because it didn't base its inner happiness on the sun. So when the sun changes, they can maintain their happiness or their joy. But your mind doesn't know how to do that in the unenlightened state. You need to train it to be able to do that, to experience unconditioned happiness or unconditioned joy. So what the Buddha is doing here is he's explaining to you the unenlightened mind and that it experiences conditioned feelings. If you experience any of these feelings now, then your mind is unenlightened. No big deal. You're here to be able to learn how to get to enlightenment. So you can independently verify this. You can ask yourself through all your experiences in life, is this explaining what you experience? Do you experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant? Are there any feelings that you experience that isn't described by this particular description that the Buddha is describing? And if you think there's a feeling that you experience that doesn't fit into this, just let me know when we get to the question period. We'll talk about questions and open up for questions here in a moment. So some people refer to this as suffering. If you've studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, or you've read books, or you've talked with people, they might be using the word suffering and talking about this. The Buddha didn't use the word suffering. He used the word dukkha. And that translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. Because what he's describing here is the full spectrum of emotions and feelings that the unenlightened mind experiences. And if you use the word suffering, this explains the painful feelings really, really well. Because when you're experiencing sadness, anger, frustration, or guilt, or shame, or fear, or any of these others, you probably would say you were suffering. But when you're happy and excited, like if your mom calls you and says, hey, I heard you got a new apartment or a new flat. I would like to come see you and spend some time with you. This is going to be so great. And you get so excited that mom's coming over to see you. You probably wouldn't say you were suffering in that situation, right? Or if that person you don't know came and sat really, really close to you on public transportation and your body was touching their body, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering in that situation. But the mind is surely discontent, because when you're so happy and so excited and bouncing off the walls, your mind is unstable. It's shaken up. It's unsteady, right? So this is discontentedness, or the mind is discontent or discontented. The same thing when you're sitting on public transportation and your body is touching the other person's body, you might say your mind is discontent, discontented, or experiencing discontentedness. So I don't use the word suffering because that only explains 1/3 of what the Buddha was talking about here. And if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teaching on an important teaching, how could you ever get to the goal of enlightenment if you didn't understand the full aspect of his teachings? So I encourage you to use the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. This is going to bring your mind to the full understanding of what the Buddha was describing in this universal truth. Then there's this third universal truth. It's called the universal truth of non-self. This is a universal truth that's going to be the solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. The Buddha discovered 10 individual problems. They're referred to as the 10 fetters. The word fetter comes from something that was happening during his lifetime, that if you were a criminal or you were a prisoner, they would attach a fetter to your ankle in order to keep you confined to a certain area. So today we put criminals in jail cells or prisons and things like this. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would put a shackle and a chain and a ball around your ankle, and then you would just be in this field with a whole bunch of other people with a fetter on their ankle. Now you'd be confined to that particular area. So the Buddha, when he discovers these 10 individual pollutions in the unenlightened mind, he refers to them as fetters because they're keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. The very first fetter is something called personal existence view. And this universal truth of non-self is the solution to that. So I'll explain to you what this personal existence view is just as an introduction, and then you'll be able to more easily understand the universal truth of non-self. What personal existence view is where the mind is clinging to this body or this mind, thinking that this is who you are as a person. The mind is clinging to a self-image or a self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And when the mind is being perceived that way, you get pleasant feelings. But when you're not being perceived that way, you'll experience painful feelings or neither painful nor pleasant. So for example, if you've ever been in a social situation and you've spilled something on your clothing, like spaghetti sauce or chocolate ice cream or something like this, and you were embarrassed, this is the mind's personal existence view, that the mind wants to be perceived by others in a certain way. The mind is clinging to this self-image, wanting others to perceive it in a certain way. And now when you've got this spaghetti sauce or this chocolate ice cream on your clothing, you feel embarrassed because the mind's clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are, and now you're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived, so you're now shaken up during that situation. Or perhaps you saw a mole or a pimple in the mirror, and you were maybe shaken up by that. Or maybe a gray hair or a wrinkle. Or maybe you were like me when I was a teenager and using gel and mousse and standing in front of the mirror and trying to get every little hair in exactly the right spot before I went outside. You might have put on different clothing and kind of looked in the mirror and say, no, that's not how I want to look today. And you might have switched clothing at different times. This is the mind clinging to a personal existence view, thinking that this body is you and you want to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you only feel comfortable if you're being perceived that way by others. Then there's the self-identity that's in the mind. What this is where the mind clings to a certain identity of who you think you are based on your culture, your ethnicity, maybe your sexual orientation, your nationality, maybe your job or occupation. Maybe you have the thought, I am Chinese, or I am American, or I am Canadian, or I am German, or I am Brazilian. This I am. It could be I am a police officer, I am a food server, I am a taxi driver. Any of this I am that's in the mind is the self-identity that the mind can cling to. And now when you cling to this identity and think that this is who you are, when that's intact, you'll feel happy and wonderful. And when it's not, you'll feel maybe like less of a person. So for example, if you can think back to a time when you were in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, you might have had the idea in your mind that I am a boyfriend or I am a girlfriend. or I am a husband, or I am a wife. And when you guys were together, you felt just fine. But when you guys broke up, you might have really struggled during that time, feeling like you needed to hurry up and get right back into another relationship, because the mind was clinging to this identity of I am a boyfriend or I am a girlfriend. And the mind didn't feel comfortable with I am single. It wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship, thinking that that was going to solve the problem, because the mind thought that if I can just become a boyfriend or girlfriend again, that'll solve everything. But the real problem is this personal existence view, where the mind's clinging to that identity. Or let's just say you have the identity in your mind of I am American, or I am Chinese, or I am Lithuanian, and you were at a restaurant, and 2 tables over, somebody said, all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle and friendly. Wow, if you identify that way, you'll feel like, wow, that's me. They're talking about me. But now if 2 tables over, they say all Americans are blah, 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 and they're very diminishing and degrading, now you'll feel frustrated. You might even be ready to fight because they're talking about you. Well, what the Buddha is saying with the universal truth of non-self is that there is no you. This body is not you. This mind is not you. This self-image isn't you. This identity that the mind is holding on to, that's not you. It's not who you are. But as long as you cling to it, you'll continue to experience discontentedness. So you need to get to the point where you don't identify with this body as who you are or anything that's going on in the mind. So you can get to the point where you realize that there is a body and it's wise to take care of it, but this doesn't define who you are. So that as you experience impermanence, you can be comfortable with that. Because if you cling to your youthfulness, for example, and now you start experiencing wrinkles and gray hair and extra fat and things like this, you'll be really shaken up by that. Or if you cling to this identity of I am a boyfriend or I'm a girlfriend, or maybe I am a police officer, and you did that occupation for 10, 15 years. Well, now when you get injured or you get fired and you're no longer doing that, maybe you're a taxi driver now, and now you really struggle because your mind is thinking, I am a police officer, but yet you're retired, or maybe you're a taxi driver, and now you really struggle during that time frame. There's people who come to Thailand with an interest to find themselves. They might say, I don't even know who I am anymore, mom and dad, or boyfriend, girlfriend, or husband, wife. I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find myself. I need to go find my true self. I'm going to go to Thailand to find myself. Well, you're not going to find yourself in Thailand because it doesn't exist, right? You might find new hobbies, new activities, new friends. You might find a new job, but you're not going to find yourself in Thailand or Mexico or anywhere else, right? It doesn't exist. And this is what the Buddha is teaching you, to be able to help you let go of holding on to this body or this mind as who you are. Because as long as you hold on to it, your mind's going to easily be shaken up when you experience change related to the body or related to the mind. Okay, so this is a bit about the 3 universal truths, which are building blocks to help you understand the 4 noble truths. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up to questions from you in order to be able to allow you to ask any and all questions that you like. The way that you ask questions is here at the temple, we have microphones in the white bowl. You just press the gray button, the lights will come on. You just hold it up to your chin. We'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. And we can pass these microphones around and have them dispersed throughout the room, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can share the microphones, so you guys can send these microphones around for people to be able to use them. For those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and unmute your microphone and ask any questions that you like. So while you guys are maybe thinking about questions and maybe coming to get the microphones, I'm going to explain to you how to independently verify the universal truth of non-self. Right? Because I showed you how to independently verify all the others. Here's how you independently verify the universal truth of non-self. Is think about yourself, right? Yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and then now. And think about yourself, your character, your personality. How was that over the course of this period of time? Do you continue to view yourself in exactly the same way? Or has this been constantly changing? right? You should be able to see that you've been constantly changing your ideas and your impressions of yourself. There you can see there isn't a permanent self. Here's another way. Think about if your arm was amputated and you only have one hand and one arm. Are you less of a person? Shaking your head no. Are you less of a person if you only have one hand or one arm? No, you're shaking your head no. How about you guys? No, you're not less of a person, right? So there you can see intellectually, you understand that this body is not you. Because if I ask you that question, if your arm is amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? And you said, yes, I'm less of a person. That means that you would think that this body is you. But this is where the confusion and the misunderstanding of the unenlightened mind is, that you can understand intellectually that this body isn't you, because otherwise you would have answered that question differently. But in the heat of the moment, when somebody says something about this body, like, wow, you're so beautiful, you're so handsome, that shirt really brings out the colors of your eyes. Ah, you feel so great, right? But then when somebody says something degrading and disparaging, like, oh, that shirt looks horrible on you, are you really going to wear that outside? And now you feel a different way, right? So intellectually, you can understand that this body isn't you. But in the heat of the moment, your mind is confused about true reality, that this body isn't you, right? And this is what you need to be able to do, is get to the point where you realize non-self, that you realize deeply in the mind that this body isn't you and that this mind isn't you. And now here's a third way that you can independently verify the universal truth of non-self. I usually ask students, point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point? Nobody's pointing. Maybe you guys have all realized non-self. Where are you? Okay, Josh is pointing here. Poon's pointing here. All right, Khalid's pointing here. That's a common thing. People will point here and say, I am here. Or they'll point here, I am here. So what you need to do is you need to look at, what are you pointing to? Right? When you're pointing here, what are you pointing to? Literally. You're pointing to a shirt. That's what you're pointing to. So ask yourself, if you took off that shirt and you held it up, is that you? That shirt that you're wearing? Is that who you are? Diego's shaking his head no, right? You're not that shirt, right? Okay, so let's get rid of the shirt, because you were pointing to that and that's not you. So let's go on this journey to try to find you, okay? Where are you? And someone might point again. Okay, now what are you pointing to? You're pointing to skin, right? So if we took off the skin, we held up the skin and we pointed to it, is that who you are? That skin that you've got there, is that you? Is that who you are? That skin? That's not you, right? So let's throw away the skin. Where are you? And someone might point again. We've got bones, we've got muscle tissue, we've got organs and fluids. None of that's you. These are just bits and pieces and parts that the mind is holding on to and thinking that this is who you are. But this isn't you. That's what the Buddha is teaching you as the universal truth of non-self, that this is not you. But the mind will cling to it, thinking that this body or this mind, this self-identity is you. Okay, so let me see if you guys have any questions. Remember, you can use the microphones here. Those of you guys online, you can put it into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So do you have any questions here or online? Looks like we have some questions coming in. There's a little gray button. You just press it and then the lights will come on. There you go. I think it's working now.
Hi.
Yep.
Yeah, so I have a question. When you say I can understand that the body isn't you, but how about the mind? That the mind isn't you. How do you explain that?
The same thing, that the self-identity that the mind clings to, that's not who you are. So like I can understand that this body was born on a land that we refer to as America, but the mind doesn't have to adopt the identity that I am American, because that's just land. It's just dirt, right? It hasn't always been called America, and it won't always be called America, right? This is all impermanent. But if the mind adopts this identity of who I think I am through where this body was born, now we will struggle in certain situations. And the thing is that we've been taught our whole life that these things are who we are. We have national anthems, we have flags, we have people constantly telling us, that we should invest in our country and we should be prideful of our country and our heritage. And this is who we are as a person. So we've even been given labels at birth. Like my label was David. That's the label that I was given at birth. And now we adopt that as our identity and we start having all this personality and this character that we think that this is who we are. But that gets all shattered when things start changing and we realize that that's not who we are. So even the mind itself, the identity that the mind is clinging to, you can get to a point where you realize this isn't you. I had a student one time that contacted me that was having a lot of trouble right after COVID, because after COVID in his country, there were companies who they were having computer systems to be able to accept your money, like if you were at a store, where before you could hand someone cash or something like this. Now everybody went to touchless payment systems, and it was a system that they could turn around and they could show you and tell you hey, your fee for this cup of coffee is $5. Would you like to tip 15%, 20%, 25%, 28%? What would you like to tip? And he said that normally when he would go order a coffee, he would just hand them a bunch of cash and the whole thing was over in 30 seconds. And now he was being confronted with this screen asking him to tip. And he was having a really hard time because he kept saying to me, he said, I am a great tipper. I am a great tipper. But I'm really conflicted when I go into these stores and I'm not tipping, and I don't understand why. Why am I so uncomfortable in this situation? Well, the reason why is because his mind identified with I am a great tipper, and he wasn't choosing to tip in this situation because it was just a 30-second transaction. He was like, I don't need to tip this person. They're getting paid. I'm getting my little coffee and we're moving on. So in this situation, because he was choosing not to tip, his mind was uncomfortable. And the answer isn't, well, just give a tip then. That's not the answer. The answer is get rid of your personal existence view, because sometimes you're going to tip and sometimes you're not. This is impermanence. But the mind's going to, as you see in a moment, it's going to crave permanence. It's going to want things to be permanent. So the mind can cling to your nationality, your culture, your sexual orientation, your job or occupation, even something like I am a great tipper. The mind can cling to this and think that this is who you are. And now you'll be conflicted in a situation where that isn't in place. Any other questions? No other questions? Okay, so let's move on to one more little building block before I explain to you the Four Noble Truths. You need to understand this in order to understand the Four Noble Truths. This is a way that we define craving, desire, attachment. This is a mental longing for something with a strong eagerness. The mind pulling in the direction of the objects of its affection. The mind has this unquenchable thirst where it has expectations and wants. There's this longing, yearning. It's like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. And the mind thinks, if I can just get this thing, everything will be perfect in my life. I just need to get this thing. If you've ever been in the mall and you've been walking down the mall and you looked into the store and you're like, oh, new pair of shoes. Oh my goodness, those are going to look so good on my feet. I can't wait to get in there and get those shoes. Oh, I just can't wait to get them. This is the craving, desire, attachment. It's not the shoes themselves. It's the way that the mind is longing and yearning for it, right? Or it might have been some jewelry or a video game or a new mobile phone. The mind pulling towards this thing, thinking that something external is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. The mind thinks, if I can just get more money, if I can just get a boyfriend or girlfriend, if I can just get a bigger house, or if I can get that new job, if I can just get this thing, everything will be perfect in my life. This is a craving, desire, attachment. Do you guys know what I'm talking about here? Have you experienced this? Yeah. The mind longing, yearning. It's not the object itself. It's the mind longing, yearning for the object. Okay, so this is a craving, desire, attachment, wants and expectations, wanting things to be a certain way. So now I'll explain to you the Four Noble Truths. This is where you can have a real breakthrough to understanding what's causing your discontent feelings. And now you can make your way towards eliminating them, right? So the first Noble Truth is explaining the problem. The second Noble Truth is explaining the cause of this problem. The third Noble Truth is explaining the elimination. And the fourth Noble Truth is explaining the path forward to completely eliminate your discontent feelings. So the problem in the mind that the Buddha discovered is that everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. So those conditioned feelings, that's the problem. The conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. Now, when we describe conditioned pleasant feelings as part of the problem, that's because the mind can only be happy if certain conditions are met, right? So if it's sunny outside, if my boss does this, if my bank account does this, if my mom and dad does this, then I will be happy. And the reason why this is a problem is because it's only temporary. It arises, it changes, and it fades away. And when you're not getting what you want, your mind is sad or angry or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. So you need to be able to see the conditioned pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're beyond the conditioned feelings. Your mind is always happy. It's always joyful, right? But here in the First Noble Truth, the Buddha is explaining this mind that's shaken up, that it's unsteady, it's uncalm. This is the problem, the discontentedness, the painful feelings, the pleasant feelings, the painful feelings, and the neither painful nor pleasant. So the excitement, the elation, the thrill, the euphoria, the sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, the loneliness, the boredom, the shyness, resentment, jealousy. These are all problematic to the mind because the mind's shaken up during this period of time. But there's a way to get beyond this where your mind can just always be joyful and always be peaceful. But you need to understand the second Noble Truth because you need to understand what's causing this problem. What's causing this problem is that discontentedness is caused by your own cravings, desires, attachments. The mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. I'm going to say this a few times and then I'm going to give you some examples to help you understand it. And then I'm going to show you how to independently verify it. Because remember, you're not believing anything. Discontentedness, the pleasant feelings, the painful feelings, and the neither painful nor pleasant is being caused by the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the wanting things to be a certain way. And the mind wants things to be permanent, but yet everything around you is impermanent. So if the mind gets what it wants, it's happy, it's excited. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets angry or sad or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. And when this is typically occurring, the mind falsely attributes these painful feelings to something external. And what the mind does is it will typically push people away or it'll push a situation away. You might have been doing this. You might have been pushing people away thinking that that's going to solve the problem. But you can see when you push people away out of your life, it doesn't solve the problem because you still get annoyed. You still get frustrated. Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like growling and roaring at another being, trying to fear them into doing things your way. That's the mind trying to get its cravings fulfilled. Or you might be putting your expectations on people, trying to control people and get people to do things your way. This is because the mind wants those cravings fulfilled. So here's some examples to help you independently verify this, how the mind is craving permanence. And when it gets what it wants, it's happy. And when it doesn't get what it wants, it gets the painful feelings like anger, sadness, and frustration. Think back to that time again with the boyfriend or girlfriend, brand new boyfriend, brand new girlfriend. When you guys first got together, you might have been so happy. Oh, it was so great when you guys met. Right? You started talking, you started spending time with each other, going to the movies, going out to dinner. You might have been spending time in the park, taking nice walks together, having conversations. Oh, it was so wonderful. You might even been having sexual contact. oh, it was just such a wonderful time, right? But then over time, your expectations grew and you wanted certain things from this person. And this person wanted certain things from you. And you couldn't fulfill those things permanently. You couldn't do what they wanted you to do. And they couldn't do what you wanted them to do. So you guys ended up breaking up. And your relationship ended. And now you might have been really upset. You might have been angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. You might have felt bored. You might have felt lonely. You might have felt like you were missing this person, right? This is because the mind's craving permanence. You might think that it's love that's causing these feelings, but it wasn't the love. Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. That doesn't cause painful feelings. What was causing the painful feelings is the mind was holding on. It was craving permanence, wanting this relationship to be permanent. From the very beginning, this relationship was impermanent, but your mind didn't have that wisdom. You didn't understand that this relationship was impermanent. So the mind was holding on and holding on and holding on and holding on tighter and tighter and tighter. And then eventually when you guys broke up, the mind was still holding on. And that's why it experienced those painful feelings. It wouldn't let go. The same thing's happening if grandma or grandpa died, or mom or dad, or brothers or sisters. You're not a bad person if you grieved or had sorrow during this time frame. It's just that the mind was holding on. It was craving permanence. If the mind gets what it wants, it's happy. But if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets angry or sad or frustrated. So if grandma and grandpa are alive, so happy, you're getting what you want. But when they die, the mind is experiencing this impermanence that it doesn't understand. So another way to say that the mind craves permanence is to say that it does not like impermanence. When things change in your life, you don't like it, right? Sometimes you enjoy certain changes, but for the most part, the mind does not like change, right? If you change jobs or you change where you live or your relationships are changing, the mind doesn't like it because it's holding on to these things. So not only does this happen in your relationships when people die, but if you think back to a wedding that you maybe attended, maybe you or the people around you were crying or grieving during the wedding. And this is because this individual, this brother or sister or this cousin or whoever it was going off into the world with somebody else. It's like, hold on a second. That's my brother. That's my sister. They're going off into the world with someone else. Hold on. Or mom and dad might be, that's my son. That's my daughter. And now this impermanence is happening where they're going off into the world with someone else. Or you might have experienced this if you got dropped off at university, or if you could think back to when you got dropped off at school when you were a little kid, or if you've seen that occur. The kids hold on. They want mom and dad to be permanent. And now when they're going off into the world without mom and dad, you cry or you grieve. Or maybe mom and dad cried when they dropped you off at university, right? This is the mind holding on and craving permanence. Okay, so here's another example that doesn't involve relationships, which might make it a bit easier for you to see this and independently verify it. Let's just say you got a brand new car, this car that you've been saving up for many years. It's the perfect car. You go down to the dealership, you purchase this car, you drive off the parking lot, brand new shiny car. You're so proud of it. You're driving down the street. All your friends are waving like, wow, look at her. She's so successful. Wow, look at him. He's really got his life together. He's got such a great car. And you're so proud of this car. You park it at the store. You go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car. Oh my goodness, you might be so frustrated or angry. It's not the scratch that's causing that. And it's not the person who scratched your car. That's not what's causing the frustration. What's causing the frustration is the mind is craving permanence. It's wanting this car to look permanently beautiful. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because when we walk through parking lots, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. That's what we aspire to do. But the point is that we live in an impermanent world. This car is going to get a scratch, or the paint's going to fade, the upholstery is going to get ripped and torn, the tires are going to need to be changed. These are all things that are changing with this car. So if we crave permanence with this car, when we're experiencing impermanence, the mind's not going to like it. It's going to be discontent in this situation, right? So this is a little bit of the learning of the second noble truth. But remember, you would like to independently verify this. Don't believe anything that I say. You'd like to get to wisdom. So take a situation from your own life where you've recently been discontent. Maybe you had pleasant feelings. Maybe you had painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant. Maybe you were angry or frustrated. It might have been this morning. It might have been yesterday. It might have been last week. Now, at that time, you might have been trying to blame somebody else. Because of your lack of wisdom, you might have been looking for someone else to blame for this situation. And that's where the mind will tend to push people away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or put your expectations on people and try to control them. But now, look at the situation with fresh eyes. What was it that your mind wanted? That if you got what you wanted, you would have been happy or excited or elated. But because you didn't get what you wanted, the mind might have been angry or frustrated or agitated or some other discontent feeling. You should be able to look in your own life and see that your mind was craving something. Your mind was longing, yearning for something. And if you don't see it, let me know and I will help you. Because what I'm teaching you is that your mind is causing your own discontent feelings. It's not mom and dad. It's not brothers and sisters. It's not your boss. It's not your boyfriend or girlfriend. It's not your children. It's not any of these things. It's your own mind causing these feelings. And one of the ways you can see that among what I just said is if you look at the sun and you see the sun and you're happy, and when it's raining, you're sad, you can see that mom and dad weren't involved in that whatsoever. Right? Your brothers and sisters weren't involved in that whatsoever, and your mind became frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And one of the beauties about this is that when you can come to terms with this, realizing that your mind is causing these feelings, the beauty is that because your mind is causing them, you can actually eliminate them. Whereas if it was everybody else who was causing these feelings, you would have to train everyone else to do things your way. You'd have to go around the world and train 8 billion people to do things your way. And you could try that if you like, but that's really hard, right? You'd have to create learning centers and books and materials, and everybody'd have to get on board with your way of doing things. And there's new babies being born all the time. So you're going to have a massive training program. Or you could just train one mind. Do you know whose mind you need to train? Whose mind you have to train? Your own mind, right? If you can look at this objectively and you can see that your mind is causing these discontent feelings, you can actually eliminate them. Because if you kept blaming other people for the feelings that you experience, you're never going to actually solve it. So you can actually solve it by having this breakthrough, by realizing that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And I'm sure you've been in arguments before where you've been adamantly trying to convince somebody that what they are doing is causing you to be angry and frustrated, and they have to stop doing what they're doing, or else you're going to continue to be angry or frustrated. That's the mind craving permanence, wanting things to be a certain way. Think back to when you were a child. Mom and dad give you chocolate and ice cream. So happy, so excited. You're the best mommy and daddy ever. Oh, I can't imagine having a better mommy and daddy than you. You gave me chocolate and ice cream. But then at some point, mom and dad said, no, you can't have chocolate and ice cream. This is the mind craving permanence, wanting things to be permanent. So the beauty in this is if you can see this, that your mind is causing these discontent feelings and independently verify it, then the third noble truth is explaining to you that you can eliminate these discontent feelings. Because if your mind is causing it through the craving, desire, attachment, then you can actually eliminate it. It's not about blame or fault or who's right or wrong. That's not what the Buddha is teaching you. He's not teaching you to blame yourself or have any kind of guilt or shame or fear. He's just helping you to see true reality, that your mind is actually causing these feelings. And the beauty about that is that your mind can actually solve it by eliminating the cause. The cause is the craving, desire, attachment. That because the mind is experiencing these discontent feelings because of the craving, desire, attachment, because that's the cause, all you need to do is eliminate the cause. And the cause is the craving, desire, attachment. If you eliminate the cause, you'll eliminate the effect. Right? But if you don't understand what the cause is, you can't eliminate the effect. So by eliminating the cause, you'll eliminate the effect. And then the fourth noble truth is explaining the way to do that. The path forward. The path forward to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. This is the complete perfect plan of how to eliminate your discontentedness. This is 8 individual steps that is going to guide you in how to actually eliminate these discontent feelings. So what you do is you learn each individual step slowly but surely using the words of the Buddha. so that now you can understand this life practice to gradually training your mind to eliminating craving, desire, attachment. It's organized into these 3 sections of wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline. And it starts with right view. And that's what we've been talking about this morning, is helping you establish right view. Right view is understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, accepting responsibility for your own feelings and emotions, understanding that it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing it. That's right view. What wrong view would be to blame other people. The moment you start blaming other people for the feelings that you experience, this is the mind having wrong view, and you won't be able to solve it. You won't be able to fix it as long as you're doing that. So if you establish right view, you can deeply see that your own mind is causing these feelings. And the way that you practice the Four Noble Truths and you practice right view is that now and forever, whenever your mind is discontent, instead of looking external and trying to blame something external, look inward and try to figure out, what are your cravings? What are your desires? What is your mind longing, yearning for? What is your mind holding on to? Because if you remember back to that boyfriend or girlfriend, when you guys were together, you felt maybe great and so happy. But when you guys broke up and you got angry or frustrated, or you were lonely or bored, for a certain period of time, you were holding on and wanting them to be in your life. But at some point, you let go. And when you let go, or maybe right now you're in the process of letting go, when you let go, your mind will regain its peace and its joy. But as long as you hold on to this person and wanting them to be permanent in your life, you'll continue to struggle. So that meditation that we did today, which is actually part of this Eightfold Path, it's training your mind to let go. It's not to eliminate your thoughts. When your mind moves off your breath and you let go and you have to come back to the breath, if you had to do that 10, 20, 30, 50 times during your meditation, this is really beneficial for your mind, because your mind has to let go. And now, because your mind doesn't want to let go, you consistently over a long-term period train your mind with meditation, but with other things as well. You need this entire path. It's not just meditation that trains your mind to let go, even practicing generosity, where you give and you share your time, effort, energy, or resources more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return. Because the mind, when it has craving, desire, attachment, will tend to be selfish. It will tend to hold on to things very tightly. It'll want things to be self-pleasing all the time. But when you share without any expectation of anything in return, your mind is eliminating its craving. It's learning to let go. So you can do things like you're walking into a store, and you can hold the door for the person behind you. This is generosity. This is giving and sharing more than is strictly required, your time, effort, energy, or resources. But remember, it's without any expectation of anything in return. If you're standing there holding the door, expecting a thank you, and they don't say thank you, you'll be frustrated, you'll be agitated, you'll be annoyed because you want something. You want a thank you. The mind has an expectation that everybody should say thank you. That's the craving for permanence. The mind's craving permanence. It's not possible for everyone to say thank you. But if you're practicing generosity, you're just doing it because you know it's wise, that it's helping to enhance the quality of your mind. But if you're standing there thinking that you want a thank you, and that's the reason why you're holding the door, you're not going to always get a thank you. So now you're going to be frustrated when you don't get one. And the reason why I know this is because that's the way I used to think. Sometimes I used to hold the door and I would wait for my thank you. And when it didn't come, I'd get frustrated. And maybe you've been in that same situation too. But you can let that go. And you can realize that people saying thank you is impermanent. It's not going to happen permanently. Okay, so this is the Eightfold Path that you would need to learn each one of these steps. And this is what I'm going to be teaching next Sunday. So whether you're here or you join by live stream, because you can join by live stream at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. Thai time, because I teach at home at 9 p.m. and I live stream it. Or if you can't attend on Sunday, you can watch the recording because it's recorded as well. And I teach this many times. I'm going to teach all of these steps so that you can understand each one of these steps using the the words of the Buddha. And I'll teach it to you in a way that you can learn it, you can reflect on it, and you can practice it. And then slowly but surely, you integrate this into your life, and this will train your mind to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. But it's all built on the foundation of right view. That's why I put it on the bottom, is that it's the foundation that everything else is built upon. Because if you didn't understand that your mind was causing the anger and the sadness and the frustration, why would you do anything to change, right? In order for you to experience change in your life, you're going to need to change, right? Oftentimes what we do is we want mom and dad to change, or we want brothers and sisters to change, or we want our boss or our friends or family to change. That's not how you create change in your life. If you would like to create and implement improvements in your life, you're going to need to decide to change. And that's why what the Buddha is doing is he's starting with you and helping you to be able to see that this path is about you doing this inner work, this inner development, so that you can heal from what hurt you, so that you never need to hurt ever again. But what's hurting you is inside your own mind. It's not the outside world. And this is where you can get to the point where the more you understand that, you can fix all these things within your own mind, and now you can get to peace and joy. The Buddha didn't go around the world and teach other people to do things his way. He trained his own mind to get to this peace and joy. And then he explained to you, how did he do it? And that's what a Buddha does, is they figure out how to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They then dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people. And countless people get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So what you would be learning here is this core central teaching of the Buddha of the Eightfold Path, of this is how he got to enlightenment. This is how he trained his mind to get to the peace and joy. And because your mind functions exactly the same as everybody else's, of course you have different contents in your mind, but the functioning of your mind functions in the same way as every other human being. You can use the same approach to be able to train your mind and actually get to enlightenment and experience that peace and joy, the focus, the concentration, the clarity, the deep memory, the personal, professional relationships that are blossoming, that are at ease, getting to the point where you're not even in a bad mood anymore because you've uprooted the causes and conditions that are producing it. So this is everything that I have to share with you guys today. I'm just going to open up to any and all questions that you guys would like to ask about anything that I've been sharing here. Remember, you guys can use the mics here, or those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So anything you guys would like to ask? I think your mic's still on. Have a question?
Yep. So I was just thinking about the mind, like considering it as a container, while itself being void. So the essence of what the mind actually is, it's so what should we call it? Like what how do we define our mind? And if we are not doing if we are not putting self-identities on it.
Yeah, what you would like to do is purify the mind. And I describe it in the same way that you just did, which is like a container, that in the unenlightened state, your mind has been conditioned to think a certain way. So for example, if you grew up in a hostile and harsh environment where maybe your parents and people around you were being bitter and harsh and hostile, and that's what you saw growing up, your mind might have been conditioned to think that that's the way to function in the world. And when somebody does what you want, you're friendly and nice to them. And when they don't do what you want, maybe you're bitter and harsh and hostile to them. And this might be what you learned growing up. And this is the mind being conditioned to think that this is the way to function as a human being. But what the Buddha is helping you to be able to see is how to get to this unconditioned mind where your mind's purified and you don't hold on to this unwise thinking, and that you can see that when you're bitter and harsh and hostile to people, this just comes back to you, and people are bitter and harsh and hostile to you. But when you train your mind to be loving and kind and compassionate and warm and gentle and things like this, but the Buddha gives you very specific details on this. When he teaches you these natural laws, you can see that when you learn them, you reflect on them, and you practice them, you'll be able to see that the condition of your mind in your life is significantly improving. So with that container, that mind, you're emptying it out. and you're getting to the point where the mind's purified, and now you understand the natural laws. And this is why by the time you get to enlightenment, not only is there all those benefits that I talked about, but you don't even get exhausted anymore. You might get to the end of your day and you feel utterly exhausted. Because if you go out into the world with a bunch of craving, desire, attachments, it's like carrying a burden. And if you go through your day and your cravings, desires, attachments are getting fulfilled, you're like, wow, this was such a great day, right? Because you were getting everything you wanted. But if you go out into the world with this craving and now your cravings aren't getting fulfilled, carrying around this burden was very exhausting. And now you get to the end of your day and you're like, wow, this was a horrible day. It was such a hectic day. And you might just feel drained and exhausted because your mind's not getting what it wants. You might feel like you have bricks on your feet or on your shoulders. So what you're doing is this mind that has all these contents and all this conditioning, you're purifying that. You're getting rid of that. You're getting rid of your beliefs because these beliefs are false beliefs, but you're not bringing in new beliefs to get rid of your false beliefs. You're bringing in wisdom. And when you're learning something that conflicts with your beliefs, you realize like, whoa, I've been going around the world believing that somebody else is causing me to be angry. But I can see the truth that it's my own mind that's causing me to be frustrated and agitated. So you're purifying this mind and getting rid of all this conditioning to the point where the mind's fully purified. And now the mind can feel bright and uplifted and cheerful all the time because you understand the natural world. You understand the laws of the natural laws of existence. Because when you live in a world that you don't understand, you'll struggle. You'll have difficulties. When we didn't understand the natural law of gravity, we struggled and we had difficulties. But with these natural laws of existence that the Buddha taught, the mind is struggling and having difficulties because it just doesn't understand. So if you've ever watched the news or if you've ever heard about mom or dad or brothers and sisters doing something and you're just like, I don't understand why they keep doing that. I just don't understand why they keep doing that, right? This is your mind not understanding the world around you. So you can get to a point where you fully understand why things are happening the way they do. You might disagree with some of the things that people are doing, but you at least understand why it's happening. And this is where you can navigate the world peacefully. Okay? So yeah, the mind is like a container, but this isn't who you are, and this doesn't define you. But there is a mind that is here, that is together with this body. And now if you purify the mind, you'll see the peace and joy. Because what we've been taught growing up is we've been taught to clean the body. All of us were taught that. That's why we take a shower, we brush our teeth and things like this. But if you weren't taught to clean your mind, then you're not addressing this entire being. You're only addressing one part of it, which is the physical body. So you might have been neglecting the mind. And one of the things that most people associate with old age is they associate old age with a declining mind. And this isn't actually true. You don't have to be old with a declining mind and a deteriorating mind. Sometimes people associate old age with being grumpy and irritable, but this isn't true. This is actually a choice that an individual is making, because you can be old and cheerful. You can be old and friendly and respectful and polite and kind and cheerful and glad and uplifted. But if your mind is accumulating a bunch of conditioning, a bunch of pollution, and as you accumulate that over the course of your life, you'll get towards the end of your life and you'll be very grumpy and very irritable, and your mind will deteriorate over time because you haven't trained it, you haven't disciplined it. So what the Buddha is teaching you is how to train your mind. And having done so, you'll see that your mind will perform optimally, not only when you're young, but even as you age, your mind will continue to perform optimally because you've purified it. It doesn't have all this extra baggage or all this extra junk in this container. Any other questions you guys have? Yeah. So get some mics here. We can send them around, because probably if you guys could pass the mics back and pass one over here, that way you guys don't have to make your way through the crowd. Looks like someone has a question in Zoom as well.
So if we are not our body, if we are not our mind, so what we are then?
So this is the mind continuing to grasp for something. It wants to grab onto something. If I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, then what am I? This is the mind still grabbing and looking for something. And what the universal truth of non-self is teaching you is that nothing is you. It doesn't define who you are. Because as soon as you grab onto something and you say, this is me, that thing is impermanent. And when it changes, you'll struggle. So you need to get to the point where you realize that none of these things are you. And that's what it means to realize non-self. And it takes consistent training. You're not going to be able to listen and learn these teachings and then instantly implement them. It's this gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. One of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is people think that he sat under a tree, he meditated, and then he instantly got to enlightenment. And this isn't actually true. He had gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. You can see it in his own words. He describes it. So some people understand the universal truth of non-self when they first learn it in personal existence view. Other times people have more challenges to understand it. But even if you understand it when you first hear about it, it still takes many months, maybe even a year or two, to get to the point where you realize non-self and the mind has fully let go of trying to find something that, what am I? The mind's going to keep trying to grab on to something where you can just realize there is a body, there is a mind, it's come together for this life, but this doesn't define who you are. It's not defining you as a person or a being. Khalid?
Earlier you said that we don't understand why somebody's doing something. Like, I don't understand why this person is doing this way and not this way. Do we, in order to find wisdom about it, do we actually want to find out why they're doing what they're doing, or we just want to come to the understanding that they do one thing, their own thing, one way, and you don't necessarily have to agree with it or follow it, but that's who they are? Do we actually want to know why?
The first step is what you're describing now, which is just understanding that not everybody's going to do things your way. Because that's what the unenlightened mind wants. Because of the ego, because of the conceit, because of the arrogance and the pride and the boastfulness within one's own mind, the mind will think everybody should do things your way. Your way is the right way, and the other way that people are doing things is the wrong way. And now when they don't do things your way, you're angry, right? But that's the mind craving permanence, wanting everybody to do things my way. So the first step is to understand the universal truth of impermanence, and that not everybody's going to do things your way, and that's okay. Because it's just impermanence. It doesn't mean their way's wrong and your way's right. It's just different, right? But then there's a deeper understanding of craving and longing and yearning and all the other fetters that are in the mind. There's that deeper understanding of why somebody is doing the way that things that they're doing, right? So like I was in a meeting yesterday where these people, these officials, they were really wanting to increase the tuition prices, and they were really wanting the prices up higher, and they wanted to do it really quick and really fast. Not here, because we don't charge any money for anything that we're doing here. This was at another meeting that I was at, and I was there to advise these people and help them. And I knew that this was coming from their own craving. And that's why I didn't have any expectation of them. I wasn't longing or yearning for them to be any particular way. I just understood that the mind has this unquenchable thirst of more and more and more and more and more. Maybe you are starting out working, making $30,000 a year, and you work really hard to get to that point. And now you're making that, and you're happy for a little while, but then your mind's like, I want more. And now you won 50,000, and you chase that and chase that and chase that and chase that. And then you get it and you're happy for a little while, but then you want more, right? And the mind just keeps chasing. So there's a deeper understanding that you can understand without even really talking to people much. You can understand why they're doing the things that they're doing. Like if someone's bitter and harsh and hostile through their intentions, their speech, and their actions, you can know that it's craving that is not getting fulfilled. So they became angry. And now when they got angry, they became unskillful through their intentions, speech, and actions. It's not anything that you're doing that's causing that. It's their mind causing it themselves. And this is where you can get to a lot of freedom, because sometimes people walk around feeling guilty and shameful. If their mom and dad is unhappy, you might have been taught that it's your job to make your mom and dad happy, right? And maybe they're putting their expectations on you and wanting to control you to do things their way. And they feel like, and maybe you feel like, that you're not a good child if you don't do things the way your parents expect. And now when they get angry and frustrated, you might feel like you've done something wrong. Well, if you understand that, no, that's their own mind causing that anger, because they have expectations and they want me to be a certain way, and that's not the way that I am, they're going to have to let go of their expectations in order to get to peace and joy. And it's not my responsibility to do that. In fact, I can't do that. They have to choose to do it for themselves. So there's a deeper understanding of other parts of the world. And as you start seeing people do things in the world, you'll know exactly why they're doing what they're doing. But it starts with just realizing impermanence, that people are going to do things differently. But then as you get deeper into your own practice, you'll be able to even see it at a much more granular level to know exactly why people are doing things a certain way.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Hi, I got a question. Because I feel like most of the time we just stuck in our body and controlled by our mind. And as a beginner in this journey, I feel like it's very difficult for me to jump out of my body and to see my mind in a third angle or objectively. So I just during my life, I just sometimes I just suddenly realize that, this is not me. So do you have some recommendations for us to constantly have a intention to identify to help us to see things in a third angle or objectively during our daily life? Yes.
Yeah, my suggestion would be to learn and practice this very closely, the Eightfold Path. This is going to open your eyes up to this better way of life that the Buddha taught. Some people refer to Buddhism as a religion. I don't think of it that way, and the Buddha never talked about it that way. It's this better way of life. So there's a lot of thinking that the mind has, a lot of conditioning that the mind has, that it needs to be able to see through. And it's this Eightfold Path that's going to help you clear that out and be able to see through this. Religion is like rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. There's usually one person at the top telling everybody else what they should and shouldn't do. There might be rules and commandments and things like this that people are, being forced to adopt or what have you, or attempting to be forced to adopt. This isn't what the Buddhist teachings are. There isn't one person at the top. There aren't any rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. Even if you've seen these things associated with Buddhist things, the Buddha never taught those. And he didn't teach rules and commandments. He taught this better way of life, of how to train your mind to understand the world around you. But it really starts with this. So you would need to be able to learn each one of these steps. And then through doing this and integrating it into your life, you're going to see more and more true reality of how to be able to gradually move the mind to this better way of life. Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to formulate, but I'll try. So what confuses me is, what is the ultimate goal? So if we are trying to abandon our desires, as I understand, is it something like being neutral or not really, not happy, not sadness? I don't know what is the ultimate goal where we want to arrive, because sometimes it feels that experiencing these emotions are also, valuable because this is life. But I can't even imagine being in the state where it's this, I don't know. So
sure. Yeah, this is a common question from people, and it's hard for the mind to understand what enlightenment is until you're actually experiencing it more and more. It's kind of like I could sit here and explain chocolate ice cream to you all day, and if you've never tasted chocolate ice cream, you'll know more about what chocolate ice cream is after I talk to you about it, but you're not going to fully understand it until you taste chocolate ice cream. So what the unenlightened mind does is it understands craving, desire, attachment. It understands chasing after things, and when I get what I want, want, I feel happy. And when I don't get what I want, I feel angry and sad and frustrated. And the mind is oftentimes motivated by its cravings. It will chase and chase and chase and chase. Or the unenlightened mind is going to be all the way over on the other side, where you're dull and lethargic and you're lackluster and you're complacent and you're maybe just sitting around not doing much at all. You can see these two sides very clearly because you experience it. What the Buddha is doing is he's inviting you to the middle way. And he's saying, hey, there's this better way of life. There's this way to live in the middle where you're not chasing and you're not forming your inner feelings on whether you get this thing or not, but you're also not over here where you're dull and lethargic. You're in the middle, where you're training your mind to pursue your goals, your objectives, your interests, but you're not forming your inner feelings on whether you accomplish that thing or not. So if you're working towards a goal and you're 80% there, if you get angry or sad or frustrated, it's not actually a goal. It's a craving, desire, attachment. You're forming your inner feelings based on this thing. A true goal, if you get 80% of the way there and you don't get it, then you can look at it and you'd be like, all right, well, what am I going to do here? Well, I could add resources. I could add more resources and maybe be able to accomplish this goal. Or I could extend my timeline and give myself more time to work towards this goal. Or I could just decide, you know what, the 80% is quite good. I'm completely fine with the 80%. I can just stop right here. I don't need to go any further. But at the end of the day, you're not forming your feelings on whether you accomplish this thing or not. In this way, you can actually be happy all the time because you're not forming your inner feelings based on any particular thing. So these conditioned feelings, you don't need them in order to exist in the world. This conditioned happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria, it's basically like if this condition is met and 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 this condition is met, then I'll be happy, which means your happiness is going to dwindle. It's going to become less and less and less. The more expectations you have, the less happiness that you can have. Whereas if you clear all of that out, you can just be happy all the time. So getting to enlightenment isn't to say that you don't experience joy and happiness, because you do. It's just unconditioned happiness, that when you wake up in the morning, you're already happy. You're already happy before you even opened your eyes. You were already happy. You see that it's sunny outside? Sweet, it's sunny outside. I'm going to go for a hike. You go take a shower, you come out. Oh, it's raining. Okay, well, I guess I'll stay home and go to the mall, do something else, have lots of fun. You're not basing your inner feelings on this thing. So if you've been in the relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, when you guys are together, you feel really happy and excited. But when they go on a business trip and they're away for 2 weeks, you might feel miserable. You might feel lonely. You might feel sad. This is because your mind's attached. It's not the love. It's your mind's attached. You feel sad and miserable in that situation because you've attached your feelings to this person. If I'm with them, I'll be happy. But if I'm away from them, I'm going to feel miserable. And that means you can't be happy all the time. So if you get to the point where, hey, let's enjoy our time together. Let's have a great time. This is wonderful that we're together. But your mind understands this is impermanent. At some point, they're going to leave. They're going to go on a business trip, or you're going to go on a business trip or something like this. And that's okay, because when you're together with them, you can enjoy your time with them. And when you're away from them, you can enjoy that time too. So you have a life outside of this relationship, where oftentimes we invest so fully into the relationship that we're only happy when we're in this relationship. And now when you're not in it, you feel miserable. And this isn't a good way to live life, because you can only be happy when certain conditions are met. So the ultimate goal is to get to the point where you eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, where you're not holding on and wanting things to be permanently a certain way. But you also are pursuing goals, objectives, or interests, but you're just not forming your inner feelings on those particular things. So you're going to have relationships. You're going to have plenty of relationships when you're enlightened and you're making your way to enlightenment, but you're not going to be forming your inner feelings on this relationship. Because if your best friend is with you and you guys are together, you feel great. But when you're apart, or they say, hey, I don't want to be your friend anymore, now you feel miserable. Where you can get to the point where, hey, when you guys are together, you have a good time. Let's have a wonderful time. But if they decide they're going to move across to another part of the world and you're not going to see them much anymore, okay, go have a good time. It's been wonderful spend time with you. See you another time. Be well. right? You can just maintain your contentedness. So oftentimes we think it's the love or the care that is causing those painful feelings in these relationships, but it's not the love and the care. It's the mind holding on and craving permanence. So you can get liberated from all of that. You can get free of all of that and get to the point where your mind's uplifted and bright and radiant all the time. And that's the ultimate goal. And the more that you make your way to it, the more you will see the qualities of enlightenment shining through. So it's not like you do all this work for 5 years or 10 years, and then there's an instant time where your mind just switches and now you're enlightened. Because we call it enlightenment. Some people might think it's a light switch, but it's not a light switch. You're going to gradually be decreasing your fetters in the mind, the pollutions of mind, and the qualities of enlightenment are gradually going to be increasing. So you're going to be seeing longer and longer periods of time where the peace and joy is coming through your mind. I've seen some students that study with me in a 5-day course, and they've studied maybe 2 days, and they come in on the 3rd day on the morning, and they're like, David, I want to thank you so much. I got an email this morning that normally would have really shaken me up. But after the last 2 days of learning and training the mind, I got that email and I completely understood it. And I wasn't upset. And thank you for sharing the teachings of the Buddha. I experienced that email very differently than I would have in the past. So you'll see the qualities of enlightenment starting to shine through because you know situations where you were once angry and frustrated and agitated. And when you experience those same situations, you're not experiencing that anymore. You'll know that it's these teachings that are helping you to accomplish that. So you don't need to live with these feelings because it just shakes up your mind. And sometimes people have adopted the view that, okay, this is just the human condition. This is what I'm going to experience. But you can get to the point where you realize, like, no, I can evolve. I can become a better human being. Just like a snake or a lizard evolves into a different species or a better species, a human being can do the same thing. We can all evolve to this higher consciousness where we no longer experience anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings. It just takes the cultivation of wisdom of how to do it. And as you cultivate that wisdom, you'll be able to see more and more that it's working to improve the condition of the mind. Any other questions? We have a question here on Zoom. Steve's asking, hi teacher, the concept of non-self is the most difficult of all the Buddhist teachings for me. It is understood that we should not be selfish and should be selfless. Also understood that 3-year-old me is not me now, and that skin, bones, and job is not myself. When you say there is no permanent self, does that mean that self is impermanent, or that there is no self at all? There is no self at all, Steve. That anything that the mind tries to grab onto and identify as a self, this is not permanent. So therefore, if you try to cling to anything, then it's going to cause the mind to be experiencing discontentedness, because the mind wants there to be a permanent self, but there isn't one. The mind has assumed that there is a self. It believes that there is a self. It's clinging to the body and the mind, thinking that this is who you are. But what you realize by penetrating these teachings is that these things aren't you. So sometimes people even cling to their decisions in the past. So say like at some point in the past, I used to use drugs or alcohol, and now I've been maybe sober for 10 years, and I might have been taught that I am an alcoholic or I am an addict. And now you're carrying around that identity. And now you might feel guilty and shameful about the choices and decisions that you made in the past. Well, those choices and decisions don't define who you are today, right? But oftentimes people are taught that their choices and decisions make them who they are today as a person, where we can understand that in the past, I might have chosen to use drugs and alcohol, and I did some very unwise things. But today, if I'm choosing to no longer do those things anymore, those things in the past don't define who I am today. Or even if I was doing those things today, that doesn't define who I am, because these things are impermanent. So you can train your mind to let go of any kind of physical form that you're holding on to, any kind of feelings, any kind of perceptions like your views and opinions, your choices and decisions, or the mind or the consciousness. None of these things are you. Where someone might say, I am angry. Well, I am not angry because there's no I there. What's happening is your mind is experiencing anger. Or someone might say, I am hungry. No, I am not hungry because there's no I here. The body needs food. That's what true reality is. Or I have a headache. No, I don't have a headache. The head hurts. That's what's truly happening. But in the unenlightened state, with this lack of wisdom, we will speak in ways that isn't actually fully true. So if you're saying those kinds of things, then the mind is reinforcing this personal existence view, and it's being hindered from realizing non-self. So I would encourage people, one of the things you can do, there's many different things that you can do, but one of the things you can do to train your mind to realize non-self is to disassociate with these kinds of things. Instead of thinking, I am hungry, just think the body needs food. Let me find some food. Where's the food? This body is going to experience some uncomfortableness sometimes. Whereas if you crave the body to be permanently comfortable, when you experience hunger pain, you'll be grumpy and you'll be irritable, right? Where you can get to the point where you don't experience that. You just understand that it's not possible for this body to be permanently comfortable. And you're going to need to experience some uncomfortableness of the body. But that doesn't mean that the mind has to be grumpy or irritable or upset. And you can get to that by realizing non-self and eliminating all these other cravings. And when we get to chapter 16 of this book, by the way, this is the book that we use for this program. When I said we're in chapter 4, this is the book. It's called Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. You can get it for free by downloading it from our website. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here at the temple by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon and get access to it. So today we're in chapter 4, but in 12 weeks, we're going to be in chapter 16. And that's where we're going to dive into detail on the personal existence view and the ego, and helping you to understand how to use various tools and techniques to eradicate this from the mind. So this perhaps can help you for now, Steve, but if you have other questions, feel free to let me know. So any other questions you guys have? Oh, you're welcome, Steve. Pleased to help you. Okay, it looks like we have a question coming in on Facebook. Marcy's asking, hello, Teacher David. When the mind recognizes someone is holding on an expectation of them, how should one deal with it? The important thing is that if somebody else has an expectation of you, the important thing is that you don't adopt that expectation of yourself, right? This is very common amongst parents or children or siblings or life partners. People might have expectations of you, wanting you to be a certain way. And you might feel like now your job is to fulfill their expectations. Whereas if that's what you do, it's like feeding a monster. And this monster is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I realized this as early as 17 years old. My family had these certain expectations of me, and I chased that and chased that and chased that and chased that. And then when I got there, they got so happy. And then over time, they wanted more. And then I chased that and chased that and chased that. And they were happy, but then they were frustrated. There was a period of time where they said, hey, David, you're spending a lot of time with your boy friends, your guy friends. We think you should get a girlfriend. I thought about it for a little while. I was like, all right, well, I'll go get a girlfriend. Right? So I went and got a girlfriend. And now when I got a girlfriend, I was spending time with her, and they were like, you know what? You're spending too much time with your girlfriend. We think you should spend more time with us. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll spend more time with them then, right? And I started doing that. And they're like, you know, you're spending too much time around us. You should go out in the world and get a job or something like that. It's like, wow, I can't make these people happy, because it's not me that's going to make them happy, right? If they're being happy because of me, that's conditional happiness, and it's temporary. So if you have someone else who has expectations of you, and you adopt those expectations on your own, you're going to chase that and chase that and chase that. And if you feed their expectations, this monster is just going to get bigger and bigger. They're going to have more and more and more and more expectations of you. So the best thing to do is lead your own life, make your own decisions. Don't allow your mind to adopt the expectations of others, and don't even put expectations on yourself. You can have goals and objectives that you're working towards, but as soon as you expect it, you long for it and you yearn for it, you can only be happy if you get that thing. So you would like to gradually work towards things as a goal, objective, or interest, but not with an expectation. And surely don't adopt other people's expectations as being your expectations. Just get rid of all of those things and just gradually work towards things through wise decision making or discernment. You have a question, Josh?
Yeah. You say when like people say to you, "I miss you," it's because of cravings. How do you respond to somebody if they message you, "I miss you," using right speech?
I usually will say things like, I understand. Because I do. I understand.
Okay. That's a good one.
Right?
Thank you.
Because that's really challenging, right? Because if you're getting rid of your attachments and then your partner's like, "Oh, I miss you so much. Did you miss me?" And you're like, "No."
No.
Right? They're like, "Don't you love me?" It's like, "No, I love you. It's just I don't miss you," right? Because I'm not attached to you. And you can have that conversation, if you will, as a life partner. It's helpful to have that conversation because you would like to maybe share some of these teachings to support them and encourage them and help them along their journey. But if it's just like a friend or somebody that, is not going to necessarily heed your advice, you might just say, "I understand."
I understand, right? Because I don't want to say, "I miss you too," because that would be lying.
Yeah, exactly. You're not interested in that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I got another question. Is like, how do you define selfish and non-selfish? Because as you said, we are not expected to have expectation on others. So I feel like if I can do this, I am very non-selfish because I don't have expectation on others. But if others have expectations on us and we don't satisfy them, they may feel like we are selfish. So I'm really curious about how do you define selfish and non-selfish?
Sure. Okay, this is a common thing. So when someone is selfish, they're operating through their cravings, desires, attachments. It's all about me and what I want. It doesn't matter what you want. It's all about me. That's selfishness. So what the unenlightened mind does is it will tend to cast its own qualities onto other people, and it will read that as coming from the other person when in fact it's coming from their own mind. So if somebody has an expectation of you and they want you to do things a certain way and you don't do what they want you to do, they will say you're selfish, when in reality it's their own mind. It's their mind having cravings and expectations, wanting you to do things their way, and they're only pleased and happy and excited when you do things their way. So now they might say you're selfish, trying to cast what's going on in their own mind, their own qualities, onto you, and now they're reading that reflection as coming from you, when in reality it's coming from their own mind. So you need to be able to identify that to get away from any guilt or shame, or this person trying to pressure you to do what it is that they want you to do. They're putting their expectations on you. So if you're just choosing to do things your way and they're your own choices, you're not being selfish. You're just choosing to do things your way. When somebody wants you to do things a certain way and you don't do it their way, that's not selfishness, right? So as you guys see, like people come here and you guys can come and go. When we first started, we had a certain number of people and then more people came. And then as we've gone on, then people have left, right? I don't have any expectation of people to stay. If you'd like to stay and you'd like to talk and you'd like to have conversation, I will teach you. But if you need to leave, if you're hungry or you got something going on or you're just hot or whatever it is for whatever reason, okay, that's you leave. If I said, oh, you're selfish because you're leaving, or you're disrespectful because you're leaving. No, it's not disrespect. It's not selfishness. It's just because someone's chosen to leave and they have something else they would like to do at this particular moment. But if someone's calling another person selfish, oftentimes it's coming from their own mind, and they're having expectations and wanting you to do things their way. And because they're not getting what they want, they're calling you selfish, when in reality it's coming from their own mind. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. All right, so what I'm going to do is just end class here. Our class doesn't always go to this point in time, but what I do is I just kind of let you guys ask whatever questions you ask, and I'm here to help you for whatever it is that you'd like help with. And if you'd like to talk privately, you're always welcome to do that. Sometimes students come talk with me after class, or they schedule personal guidance with me where you can meet in person or you can meet online as you travel. Everything I do is available at no cost, whether it's our classes, courses, or retreats, or our books and videos and podcasts, even personal guidance. You can come talk with me as many times as you like, and I will help you to learn these teachings, because the Buddha figured it out. He figured out how to get to this better way of life. And I can assure you that his teachings lead exactly where he said they do, to this peaceful and joyful mental state of enlightenment. I know this with 100% certainty. And as you learn and grow and you develop on the path, you'll be able to see that's true for yourself as well. So if you'd like to learn and grow and develop and heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt again, there's help for you here. And there's ability for you to get access to all these resources, even personal guidance, all available at no cost. So perhaps I'll see you guys in one of these future classes, because on Wednesday I'm going to be teaching as well. You can come here and we'll do meditation, and I'll be teaching as well starting at 9 a.m. and I also do that at 9 p.m. And then we have courses and retreats throughout the year. You can see our schedule. You can see our website. You can see all the different things. If you'd like to get plugged into what we're doing, there's more than many resources for you to be able to get access to be able to help you along the journey. So enjoy the rest of your day, whatever you choose to do, and perhaps I'll see you next time. Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.